I'll just go ahead and get started, and I'll continue talking about the history of ISDB here in Gooding. This is part 3. So we've done December and January and February, and so now we'll be continuing. Before I get started though, does anybody remember my name? What's my name? Your name is Jerry, J-E-R-R-Y. That's right, and what's my last name?
Wilding.
Okay, let's have somebody else. And this is Kyle. It's Wilding. Okay, well, I found out yesterday that some people, yes, were calling me Mr. Wild. Where did that come from? It's Jerry Wilding. Okay, yeah, I found that out yesterday. And this is Christy Lancaster. Yeah, that's my point exactly, that everybody should know your name and know how to spell it. Okay, so we've solved that, but before we get started with the rest of it, you know my name, but when did I graduate? Was it before you were born? And this is Taylor. My guess is 1947. Am I right? Nope, not 1947. It's 1955. So I graduated from ISDB in 1955. And this is Kyle. So when were you born then? I don't know. I can't remember. I don't remember that, being born. Okay. I think what I'm going to try to do is make sure if you have a question and you sign it to me, that I will repeat it so that the interpreters can get it and we can make sure that everyone has access to it. And there was a question, that's right, yes, I've been 39 years old for 36 years. Yeah. So I've been celebrating that birthday for 36 years, which means I don't know, you have to do the math. And whoever's over there trying to figure out is a little slow in figuring that out. Okay, so now back to the presentation. The picture that we have up here is from 1969. It was from the administration offices, and the cost to build it was $445,000. Which today would be even more expensive. Okay, let's see the next picture. I know Aditya was kind of walking around there, so let's see if he can get the next picture loaded up. Okay, so with this picture up here, did I talk about that last month?
No.
This building here? That this part of the building was the print shop, and the museum is now housed there. But at the time of its construction, the completion of construction, there was the print office and then the administration offices, and then there was a cottage, actually, for the little kids, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, both deaf and blind students. And I think altogether there were 12 each, and no, 8 within each department, so about 16 kids. And then after that, they would go transfer to the regular cottages. In the middle of the round building were the classrooms, and there were 12 classrooms. It was constructed somewhat in the shape, because it was round, they were split up like it was a pie. So there was a wedge-shaped classroom, and then there was a bathroom in between each, in between sets of 2 classrooms. Now CSI uses some of that space, and then there's a small area that's used for the museum. So one of those former classrooms where there was 12 divided into the, like the pieces of a pie, that one of those now uses the museum, is used as the museum. The next picture we show has the Casey building. Then it was dorms. And it became a complex, actually, where there was a roof that connected 2 different buildings. This was the next picture here. This was the school for the blind. And there were also locker rooms in there. Do you have a sign for, how would you sign that for locker rooms, I guess? There was a whole kind of section of the building that contained those. This next picture is the dedication for that building, and the dedication was made by the first superintendent who himself was blind. Do you guys remember his name? Orville Casey was 75 at the time this picture was taken in 1975. And so the building was named in his honor. Orville Casey. He actually sold candy and bubble gum and assortments for many years. He did that.
And by the wand.
And I actually saw him. I saw him at one point, and I was like, wow, that's really Orville Casey. And this is another graduate, Jesse Anderson. He then was a member of both the Idaho and Utah legislatures, and was there as part of the honoring of Orville Casey that was happening at the dedication to the building. Now, in 1975, these next pictures, what they reflect is that there was the main building, and it had the dorm and the cafeteria and the school and everything there in one building. Then as things grew, I would say it was about, in 1962, a new cafeteria was started. Before it was in the basement, and then the various departments and classrooms and whatnot moved to other locations, so the main building was not being used anymore, and so it was demolished. And there was a crane with a wrecking ball that was brought, and it actually was just put right through the roof and went through all of the floors to begin the demolition. At that point, it was 65 years old, the building was, so the demolition took place, and then there's this tree that's right next to the building. Remember I explained about the tree? And then, let's see, in 2006, one part of it was taken down, and then last year, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but the last portion of the tree was taken down there by the cottages. And then this next picture shows the superintendent, Keith Tolzin. His name sign was a T at the chest. And he was superintendent for 9 years. Do you remember, he had a grandson. Does anybody remember anything about his grandson? His name sign was what, a B on the palm or something? No, I'm not talking about his son, I'm talking about his grandson. He graduated from here a few years ago. And his name was, he was from Twin Falls. Little blonde kid. Damon, was that his last name? This is Santina. I think it was Damon. Yeah, and I think maybe his name sign was D at the side of the mouth. Oh, right, Damon Jensen. Yes, well, this was his grandfather here, Keith Tolzin. He signed well. He was a good signer. And he was also superintendent later at the Twin Falls School District. Okay, and that brings us to 1983, where we had a very famous earthquake. And it was more north of here, like near Chalice. There was a big earthquake. Here, we didn't really feel the effects of the earthquake as much, but where it happened in the public school, there was actually a collapse of part of a building that killed 2 students there at the public school where it happened. Here, in one of the buildings, there was a brick wall that actually had a bit of collapse to it, and so they had to close the school, which made everyone kind of look around and say, well, where are we going to have school? I mean, all of you kids would be jumping up and down for joy, thinking all school's closed, but we figured out a place to move it. And had school in a different location where they could then do repairs to the other buildings that were damaged by the earthquake. And these pictures that we're going to show next show demolition of some of the buildings. This is behind the cottages. It was a gym. And there was a garage with it as well that could fit 6 cars, 3 on each side facing each other. And Ken's welding class, actually, I don't have a good good picture of it, but it was in the same location of where this old building used to be. And so those buildings were demolished. And then Cottage 6 was built. So the girls' dorm and the other dorms were no longer used, and those were consolidated into Cottage 6. And let's see, each of the cottages has can hold 12 people, right? And it was kind of designed after the Fremont School, only they're a little smaller here. So they have housing available for 12 students. And this picture here shows a speech that was being given for the groundbreaking ceremony for these new buildings that were completed. And this is Superintendent Tolson again. Also, Governor Evans came to that ceremony. He gave a speech. And then the school building was demolished, and these pictures show that process. In one of the pictures, it shows that they actually, in front of the building, put a mobile home, like a mobile or temporary type building that was there for, oh goodness, 2 or 3 years. And there were actually 4 classrooms that were housed within those 2 temporary buildings. So those were the school buildings for a while. And can everybody, is it possible to see the pictures well with the lights the way they are? I don't know if we should change that. This is the vocational building shown here, and that got demolished, and in its place was Cottage 2 that was built. Let me see if there's a better picture of that. Is that better? Okay, I turned off some of the lights up front, so hopefully you can still see me, but then also see the pictures a little bit better. It's showing the front of that vocational building. Actually, both pictures show the front. There's actually a person on the roof pictured there who's working as part of the demolition process. It's also possible to see in the picture the lines where the old building was that an addition was built onto. And then what's happening here in 1987 is that it's all being torn down. And then these other pictures are showing the back of the building. There's actually in one of the pictures, it captures a bird that's sitting on the roof that must feel awfully sad because there had been a broken window there that the bird had been able to get into and build a little nest and have a home. And with the building being torn down, it was no longer going to have that. And then here you can see Cottage 2 in one of the pictures there, with the vocational building in the background being torn down. And then we have the next superintendent, James Rainier, and he was also a superintendent for 9 years. When the new campus was opened, there was also this new superintendent, who's pictured here. He was 6 feet 6 inches tall, and we know Ken's 6'9", Ken Anderson, but he was a very tall man, and here is capturing the moment where they were doing a ribbon cutting. And this is someone who's different than the previous superintendent, whose grandson we talked about that graduated from the school. This is actually a different superintendent, but who's pictured in the photo here is Brian Darcy's sister. And she lives with Brian's father, yeah, and she is visually impaired. And this is Nathan Holmes. He graduated, I think, in 86 or 87 or something. He now lives in Hawaii. Anyway, so what they're doing here is cutting the ribbon in front of the doors to open the new campus. There was a big release of all kinds of balloons to celebrate the grand opening. And the picture is actually dated October 16th, 1987. And then that very next fall, the old Gothic barn was demolished. And there's actually a picture here that shows my car, Suburban, parked right in front of it. I was doing a little bit of research and documentation before they were going to demolish it. And there was a weather vane that was up on top. That was really cool, and it's housed in the museum now. And then, can you guys guess what's happening here? It's in front of the tar pit. It's a picture with a person operating a piece of machinery. And that was the beginning of the tennis courts, laying down the tennis courts. Then there's also pictures here showing the rubber track going in for the oval track. And they shrank it down to 400 meters, which is European sizing for a track. There's also a laser light that they used, and that was in order to level the track. There was actually 2 feet difference, 2 feet of difference between the two sides, so they had to do grading in order to level the field properly and lay the new track. And that was done in 1990. This fall, it was just repainted with new stripes, and boy, does it look nice. Mm-hmm. But these pictures were when it went in the first time in 1990. And then there was a water fountain that was installed, which is still there, right? That water fountain is still there. That was first installed in 1994. And this here was for the scoreboard for the football. The exterior, the poles were installed, but it was never completed. And then there at the softball field, to the side of it, was a ditch, which as a small boy, I used to swim in. It's now covered up, but it was near the boys' dormitory, and that used to be an area where we would go play, and boy, was I sad when that got taken out. But no fishing in there, just swimming. And then this picture here is of Brian's father, Ronald Darcy. He was active superintendent once or twice before becoming official superintendent. And these pictures here are showing the maintenance building. Do you guys know where that is? It's right there adjacent to a farm field. There's still an old chimney stack that's there to the side of it. And then, do you guys know this picture here is of Angel Ramos? He was the first superintendent who was deaf. He was for many years president of a college. For many years, the superintendents were all hearing. And then this was the first time that a superintendent was someone who was deaf. And he was superintendent for, let's see, about 3 years. And before that, he had been in Arizona and I think somewhere on the East Coast.
And is the superintendent correct somewhere right now? I believe New Jersey School for the Deaf at this point. This is the building where the sand shed is. It's a house now. And our property line, last fall, I don't know if you saw them add this, but they keep sand inside of there. Here is our fire pit. A nice round fire pit. I'm not sure exactly when it was built, when it was installed. I'm not sure what year, but it's very nice. Round with benches. And now we've made, we're back to the front of the campus here. This is the circle, in front of the main building. And the trees, what happened to those trees? They were cut down. Cut them down, no trees anymore. Now here we have one of our superintendents. She taught for many, many years. And then was helping as the assistant superintendent and then became the superintendent. Her name is Mary Dunn, and she was did it for 2 years, and now she lives in Jerome, and her husband's was a coach in high school for track and cross country, a very good coach. And now, who's this guy? Anybody know? Robin Darcy, right?
No.
And he started in 2010, and who knows when he'll end. And he's tall, right? Tall guy, pretty tall, 6'6", right? And Jim Rainier was 6'6", and now he's 6'8". Oh, little shy Ken. And here are these trees here by the cottages. There, cottage 1, they were right, and then 2 is behind it. And it was 100 years old. It was a willow tree, and they cut it down. It became sick and had an infection of some kind. And so last year they had to cut it down. And the class of 96 planted, or 2006 planted a tree, a new tree. Well. Now, why'd they cut down the trees? If a tree was diseased, it had some bugs, disease, and so, all over the United States, towns were having to take down trees because the white birch trees in particular had all these infections and had to be taken down. Now I'm going to open up for questions. With time left, any questions? Stand up. Stand up, gotta stand up, gotta come to the front. You can come up here and ask a question, or you want to sell something? You want to, what do you, something about the school history that you want to know about the school that maybe I didn't mention? Why did they destroy the main building was the question. Why did they destroy the main building? They didn't use it anymore. It was empty. Remember, they moved and it was left vacant. It became very old. And it was in 1910 it was built to 1975. So they didn't need it anymore and they took it down. A lot of schools have that. They have old buildings and they have to take them down and put up new buildings. Other questions? Why not build it again in the same town and not move it? Because it costs more money. It costs money to tear down the school and then build it again. It all costs money. So it's just cheaper to keep it in the same place and take down the old building and then erect a new one. The dorms would be better than the cottages. Oh, likes the dorms better than the cottages. Interesting. Okay, so the dorms before They had 25 kids, I'd say, about, and cottages can have 12. So 25 to 12, and only one supervisor. Now how many supervisors do you have all day and night? You know, and before there was none in the night. They had a man and a woman who worked at night, and they would go to each building and check to see what was going on, use a flashlight, check to see everything was okay, travel from building to building. And they had something in the museum that they used to keep like their keys and everything, and punch times when they would stamp a time as they made these rounds. And I think they had to do it twice during the night, and then the rest of the time the supervisor would sleep in the cottage. So here, you know, they finish work and they go home and sleep. And then also the cottages have a kitchen. The dorm didn't. So, pros and cons. How did the kids in the dorm eat? Yeah, that's an interesting question. You never ate in the dorms. They never did, except Sunday afternoon. They would cook and they would eat there. But the rest of the time it was in the cafeteria. But only Sunday night. You know, the cooks need a rest, so they would make sandwiches, and each dorm would have a different color tray: red, green, blue. I think mine, museum that one I have is red. And they would make sandwiches, and each dorm would have their own color, and I happened to find one of those that's red. If they're hungry, they can go into the kitchen now, and they couldn't. Now it's all locked. They don't trust you. They're going to eat everything and waddle out of there, so they're not letting you in. But before they would. You're hungry. You need to eat something. You'd be able to, but now you have to buy everything, right? You guys are rich, so you can go across to Ridley's and buy everything, right? Now we have about 70 kids, or 90. Okay, my time, not much difference really. The highest was 160. 160 was the best, the top number. I'm not sure what year it was. When I graduated, though, I would say there was probably around 100, over 100. But at that time, my time, we started going to Gallaudet University. Before that, nobody had gone to college, but my time, we did. We started going to Gallaudet, and in 51, my brother actually went. 3 of us went to Gallaudet. In 53, there were 3 of us that went, or 3 or 4. And then 5 of us actually all went as a group, the entire graduating class. At one point there were 12 of us, and that was the largest number from one class in the United States. We were first in the nation, Idaho. And so since then, you know, some go, but there's less and less. I know it's really expensive to go to Gallaudet. I'm wondering, when you graduated why did you come and work here for so many years after that? Why did you come back and work? Okay, yeah, I went, graduated, went to Gallaudet 5 years, came back, and, you know, that happens sometimes. My class, you know, they came back to their school. You know, you get a job. Idaho was offering to hire me, and so I took the job. You want to know how much I earned my first year working? In 1 year, my salary. You want to know? Santina knows. Oh, she wants to know. Guess, Santina. $2,500. She says $2,500. Okay. It was actually $4,900 my first year. $4,900. And that was good pay, actually. Good pay. Also, my wife taught part-time, and she earned $1,800. So, wowee, we're making it. And then when we retired, I was earning $37,000 a year. But my first year, $4,000. It was just, wow. Didn't have a car, had to walk back and forth 4 miles. No car, didn't have a car. Didn't need one, really. You know. Now you guys think if it's a mile, you've got to have a car. My mom makes about $34,000 every year now. Oh, 45? 45,000. Ah, yeah, today, of course, you earn more. Yep. Filthy rich now. You're all filthy rich. Kidding. And to back up, when I got the job in Idaho, I thought, wow, you know, I'm making a lot of money. In my class, they majored in education. And I had the best pay of all, actually. Some were $2,800, $3,000. Some didn't get a job, or it took them a while. They graduated. There was no job. But I had a job ready in the spring, actually. I came back to good old Gooding. Started working. Other questions? Others? Hold on to Kyle. Other people? Dorm life? Anybody want to know what that was like? Or Mercedes, what now? Stand, child, stand. Mercedes and Franny both work in the museum. They know more about the school history than you do, but they won't tell me what they learned or what they know. Hold on, Kyle. Oh, Santina. Okay. Some rules now and in the past, long ago, are they the same rules? Rules, let's see. When we were small boys, we had to hold hands and go two in a line, you know, walking, holding hands. You know, we had to. Boys went first and then the girls would go later, never together, never. And then we would have to hold hands across town. Often we go to King's, that's probably the place. It's moved over now, before it was downtown, but we would absolutely have to hold hands. Yeah, we were required to hold hands. Absolutely. They were strict about it. They didn't want you to get lost. You know, nowadays it's different. Okay, I'm going to close now. Hold on. I want to explain something about the school. All over the United States, near cemeteries, interesting, schools for the deaf are often built. New Mexico, School for the Deaf, is near a cemetery. We are Utah, Iowa, and in New Mexico in the past it was the same as here. When they built the school in a new town, they needed a new school for the deaf, and they would always put it out of town, not within the town. They think something's wrong with deaf people, I guess, and so they would build near the cemetery because that was always out of town as well. So but I've checked different schools for the deaf, and there are a lot of them that are. Maryland School for the Deaf is also near a cemetery. And New Mexico, the town grew, and the cemetery's outside of town, and the deaf school's right next to that, and then the town grew outward. So now they're in town, but before, when it was actually built, they were considered way out of town. Mercedes? In New Mexico, oh, where is it? It's Santa Fe, New Mexico, near Albuquerque. Santa Fe is north. It's the oldest Mexican town in the United States, Santa Fe. It's the oldest one in the United States. St. Augustine, Florida is the oldest town in the U.S., and both schools for the deaf are there. So interesting history. Idaho, you know. But time's up. You have a good weekend. Deaf Olympics will be the next one next month, all right? Wow.